Hi, folks. Welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Kind of a cool, quiet, little cloudy, foggy morning here in the Ozarks. Had a little bit of rain yesterday, and supposed to get some more this week, even a few thunderstorms. Yesterday was our monthly meeting, and it went amazing. Patrick Holland, which many of you that's come to the meeting was there to talk, did an amazing presentation. Lots of people were excited. He brought a real genuine deal, actually two of them, rife machines, and it just was very, very excited about that. And we're in talks with him to, on a monthly basis, because where we meet, there's a side room of setting up a little area where he can actually use that on people that come in. And if you know what that is, you know what that is. So we'll be scheduling that as just part of our meetings now when he's able to be there and set that up every month. So that was really exciting. It was just a great turnout. Several new families came, some new people that had moved into the area. So they came for the first time, and it was just exciting. A great meeting as always. Crazy stuff's going on in the news. Some of it is what I've been warning you about, and it's going to start feeling. Remember I told you the stuff going on, it's going to bring some hurt. Number one, I guess this is one of the bigger things that's talked about this morning, is that there's a big blackout affecting a lot of Europe, not all of it, but large portions of it. Spain, Portugal's getting the brunt of it, parts of Italy and France and Brussels or Belgium, and I think a few other countries are experiencing. I've not seen any definitive story of why it's happening, but there's a lot of talk of it possibly being cyber attacks. I don't know. Is this something to potentially be blamed on the Russia-Ukraine thing? Who knows? I don't know. Probably a little too early to tell, but something to probably keep an eye on. China has come out again because the President Trump has been still saying that, he's been in talks with China, or China and U.S. are talking, or he's talked to Xi Jinping, all this kind of stuff. China's come out and said that there has been absolutely no communication whatsoever between Xi Jinping and President Trump, that there's been no communication whatsoever between the two governments, period. It's not happening. And they also said that they will not come to the table to even discuss things until the U.S. drops its tariffs. So that seems to be getting a little bit more, I guess you could say, escalatory. And speaking of that, this pain, this hurt that I've been telling you is going to happen, looks like it might start happening soon enough. It's kind of started over the weekend, and this morning it seems to be getting some weight to it in the news of the current situation with the ports in the United States and what it looks like it's going to happen in the near future. Now, let's just pause for a minute and go back to COVID era. Remember during COVID, there was this bottleneck at the ports. Remember the stories of hundreds of cargo vessels just setting out in the ocean, and they couldn't get into the ports because there wasn't enough workers, and there was this bottleneck. And we started seeing signs of that on the store shelves, a lot less stuff. There was, whole YouTube channels just popped up out of nowhere that did nothing but devoted themselves to daily talking about how store shelves were bare. Remember that? Well, something similar is happening, except there's not a bottleneck. There's not a bottleneck of ships. There's not like there's a bunch of ships, all being, waiting to get into the ports to unload. There are no ships. There's just no ships. This is now hitting the news. All the mainstream news is talking about this. Business news is talking about this, that there has been a very sharp decline, and that over the next 2 weeks, it's going to be even sharper. And the reason why the 2-week period is kind of important, because it takes approximately 2 weeks, anywhere between 14 and 20 days on average, for a cargo vessel to leave China and reach at least our western ports, China, California ports, Portland, things like that. So we can know, you can see how many ships have, let's say for today, how many ships left the ports of China. So we know how many is going to show up in 2 weeks, right? And so they're looking at 2 weeks from now, meaning starting today, what would leave today or so. 2 weeks from now, they're showing anywhere between a 35 to 50% decline in cargo vessels. And it's every week, it's less and less, significantly less. There are pictures from this morning up at the Portland port, and it is completely bare. There's no ships in port. There's you can do the cargo tracking apps that'll tell you how many vessels, and in that port there's none. There's no containers on the docks. There's nothing. It's just, it looks like it's a ghost town for the most part. Same thing as, although not quite as extreme, is starting to show up in California. In the ports there, that there's sharp declines of the ships that are at those ports, sharp declines of the cargo containers at those ports. This is something I've been warning about, and I know there's probably going to be a couple of dozen comments, at least in the comments section. We don't need that cheap Chinese junk, and I've told you, number one, we don't just get the cheap Chinese junk. I mean, I guess that's relative, from China, meaning, the little cheapy, junky, little knickknacks and trinkets and things that you don't need and stuff. We get a lot of stuff from China, a lot of industrial equipment, things to keep our grid going. I mean, that's just, I don't like it. It's wrong, but the United States grid would cease to exist over a period of time if we were cut off from China, because transformers, breakers, all kinds of equipment that is used to maintain our grid, our very old grid that needs lots of maintenance, it comes from China. If you remember during COVID, there was this backlog and there was this worry that, the grid could go down, and there was problems with it because they weren't getting things like transformers from China. Well, now they're not getting anything. There's just a lot: automotive, farming equipment, industrial equipment, raw materials for things. And even if it is just the cheaper junk, the cheap coffee makers and the cheap vacuums, things like that. Maybe you don't want them, maybe you don't need them, but most of America believes that they do. And when the store shelves start to become bare and things aren't available, it's not so much the problem as the stuff isn't there. The problem is the reaction of the people. Remember, I talked about that a lot for those of you that's been around for a few years during COVID, of how the real danger wasn't necessarily the disease. It honestly wasn't even necessarily the reaction of the government, lockdowns or mandates or anything like that. The real danger during that time was the reaction of the people. And once again, that's going to happen. Last week, the CEOs, the heads of Walmart, Target, Home Depot, several other companies met with President Trump and warned him. He said, they said, our shelves are going to be bare in 2 weeks. We're not going to have anything in our stores to sell if you don't stop doing this. And that was the time that the president came out and kind of acted like he backed off a little bit, like he kind of blinked from the whole tariff thing, and then the media came out and kind of attacked him. And I think what he did is he bucked up and said, no, we're not doing that. And so the tariffs still stand. This is going to hurt. If something doesn't, even if today, if the president came out today and said, okay, all the tariffs are off, and so there was this immediate surge in purchasing things, and all of a sudden tomorrow, it wouldn't happen that quickly, but tomorrow a bunch of orders started coming through, there would still be at least a 2 to 4 week gap there with nothing coming into this country, meaning there would be a 2 to 4 week gap of stores being empty. And even if that happened, that he tomorrow or today said everything's back to normal, no tariffs, the orders wouldn't happen that quickly, because in China they've already laid off a bunch of employees. There's already been talks in the news that a lot of factories have laid people off because they're not getting any orders in. Okay, and so it would take, and there are some estimates, this isn't my numbers, but I've seen some estimates, 3 to 6 months potentially to catch up from this. And that's if it just stopped tomorrow. And there's no indication that that's going to happen. So you need to start getting ready. The possibility of seeing seriously bare shelves of parts for things that you need. I know, again, I don't need that kind of stuff. Really? Okay, well, let's say 2 weeks from now you need to buy brakes for your car. I mean, you may have a hard time finding that, because I think a lot of Americans think that there's just, their auto parts store has just massive amounts of stuff in the back that they could just live off of for weeks at a time, or that the local grocery store or department store, whatever, just has these, massive amounts of storage for shelves, for stock. That's not how it works. It's just not. There's not really a whole lot of stuff being just held in warehouses. That stuff in warehouses is constantly comes in, and it just very quickly goes back out. It's that kind of next day movement. So this idea that there's this stockpile of stuff, whatever the stuff might be, is just not true. And so it would not take very long to see things depleted. During COVID again, when all that stuff was going on, I would talk to people that worked in these warehouses, these distribution centers for like Walmart and grocery stores and stuff. And they told me how just it seemed like almost overnight, this massive warehouse that would have, millions of square footage of storage would just be empty, because if it was cut off over here on this side, it didn't take but just a few days for all that stuff in the warehouse to be redistributed to the stores, with nothing coming in to replace it. And so it would not take very long. The average city, the average community in the United States has about a 3-day supply, meaning if your town that you live in was cut off from the outside world, the stuff in those stores would last about 3 days. Maybe 5 to 6 days, but most of it's 3 days. If people were purchasing at the normal rate, in about 3 or 4 days' time, you're going to start to see empty stores. And this is happening. I mean, it's pretty much sure it's happening. Now, of course, not everything comes from China. I get that, but a lot does. We've also got, because here's the thing, the majority of the stuff that you see in the United States on shelves comes from China, Canada, Mexico, and then Europe, mostly being Germany, but a few other countries in Europe. And those are the areas that's being hit the hardest with the tariffs. Obviously, China is the worst, the hardest hit with tariffs, but those are the areas that's being hit the hardest. The president over the weekend was back on making Canada the 51st state again, reiterating that. So this trade war stuff, it's going to start hitting home soon. People need to wake up. I hope you've been preparing. I hope you've been stocking up on things, because it's very possible that over the next 2 to 4 weeks time period, you're going to start noticing empty shelves. There's been warnings everywhere about it, that it's happening. And like I said, you can look today, and I would guess over the next couple of weeks, it's going to be talked about more, of ports being empty, trucking slowing down dramatically, rail slowing down dramatically, which is also going to affect jobs. It's going to affect a lot of people, good, hardworking, red-blooded Americans. They're going to be out of work. There's a lot of stuff going on with this, and I'm not saying it's good or bad. That's been the thing. Everyone assumes that when I talk about this, that, oh, I think all of this is horrible, and I don't really have an opinion specifically on whether we should or shouldn't be doing the tariff thing or the trade war. All I'm trying to explain to you is that you need to be prepared for it. And I think most people don't understand the seriousness of what's going to happen. Like, oh yeah, we got to do this. We got to do America first. That's right. But you better be prepared for the consequences, because they're going to start hitting real soon. Store shelves are going to be bare, and you're going to have a real difficult time finding things because it's just not going to exist. Remember, pharmaceuticals, we're talking 85-90% of all pharmaceuticals in America, over the counter and prescription, all come out of China or originate somehow in China. So you need to be prepared, folks. It's going to start happening. The hurt's going to start coming on. Get your houses in order and prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video.